So I've got 1 month to go as president. I'm very grateful to my colleagues who put their confidence in me, and I think we've had a great year. My primary focus in the remaining month is to get a real and profound understanding of the cost drivers in county government. Mr. Leggett has publicly stated that he anticipates a big tax increase in the spring. We haven't yet seen the next batch of revenue estimates. We will get one this month, and there will be others prior to our receipt of Mr. Leggett's budget. I think it is premature to say we need a tax increase, but Mr. Leggett has so stated. What I'm hoping is that we can take this opportunity really to learn about how we got where we are in terms of the cost of government. And so on November 17th, we will have an in-depth discussion of the primary cost drivers for county government. There are factors that are within our control, and those are the year-to-year funding of programs, projects, and services, compensation and benefits for employees, and the size of our workforce. There are other factors that are out of our control, such as rising enrollment growth in our schools, mandates, including the maintenance of effort requirement from the state and the pension shift, and the outcome of the Wynn versus Comptroller case in the Supreme Court. So I'm hoping really just to use this as a learning opportunity and then to plant the seed for the coming months prior to the budget, before we're in the very compressed schedule of the budget, to get our minds around do we want to make significant changes in the structure and the cost structure. One piece of the cost of government discussion, it is just one piece, will be a review of data from the OLO report, Comparative Data on High-Level Manager Salaries, which will be released tomorrow. I'm not going to speak to the content of that report prior to its release. It's embargoed until tomorrow. But I don't want to overstate these compensation concerns, but neither do I want to minimize them. And so it is one among many factors that drive the cost of government and that we should contemplate before we contemplate any increase in taxes. So on Saturday morning, I'm going to El Salvador with the Sister Cities effort. 4 years ago, when I visited El Salvador with County Executive Leggett, we visited the hospital in San Francisco Gotera, and it literally brought tears to my eyes, the substandard conditions of care that Salvadoran families must endure. One reason I think it's important to maintain a Sister Cities relationship with El Salvador is that we are in the midst of a national dialogue about immigration. And it seems to me that if we wish to stabilize migration, the answer is not building ever higher walls between ourselves and our allies and trading partners to the south. We should do what we can, both the public and the private sector, to stabilize conditions in those countries. And so I think we'll be making a small move in that regard. I put out a call to public health practitioners and people of conscience in the community, and I've been very, very gratified at the response I received. We shipped a truckload full of medical equipment and supplies, and also computers which were out of date for Montgomery County, but which will still be useful for the schools and local governments in Morazan, El Salvador. And I intended to raise about $10,000 so that the hospital can purchase equipment in El Salvador. One of the most important things when you're trying to promote international development is to promote buying from local vendors. We're going to be bringing a check for $11,500. So yet again, I'm just grateful to live in this enlightened community, Montgomery County. I'm very gratified that so many people responded generously and favorably to maintain this sister city relationship. So I'll be gone just for 4 days. I'm paying the cost entirely on my own. There's no, I'm not billing the county for any aspect of this endeavor. So that's where we are today, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
When you talk about, Mr. Leggett says we'll need a big tax increase, ballpark, has he said to the council?
No, you'd have to ask him the amount, but as recently as a week ago Sunday, he said sizable.
What exactly does the Economic Development Corporation, what role do they have in budget or anything else?
The Economic Development Corporation, we had an excellent conversation with the board members last week, and we are approaching this very, very important enterprise now in a similar manner to other jurisdictions. Fairfax County, Howard County, even Prince George's County have private economic development corporations that seek to expand the employment base, attract new businesses, and work with and retain the businesses that are here. The ultimate best answer to this budget conundrum is to grow our tax base and to have more jobs and investment. And so that's the purpose of every jurisdiction's economic development efforts, and that will be the goal for the new Economic Development Corporation. Grow jobs and investment.
Okay.
As far as this OLO report, did you request it?
I did. I requested it.
And why the focus on, what sort of sparked your attention about government management salaries?
I suspect that our county has drifted into paying more than we need to attract the very best talent. I don't question that you get what you pay for, and we want the very best department heads available. But I have suspected for a long time that we are paying more than we need to.
Were there any particular hiring choices that?
Yes.
What were they?
Well, I don't want to embarrass anyone in particular, and I'm sensitive that personnel matters should be privileged. So let's just suffice it to say that there were specific hiring decisions that I believe individuals would have happily taken the job at a salary at least 10% lower. And I've had that dialogue with the county executive, and you can ask him his views when the report comes out. But I think we've drifted into paying more than we need to, both to be competitive with other jurisdictions and the federal government. Those have historically been the rationales for very high salaries for directors and managers. Is we want to have the very best. I agree, we want to have the very best. And we need to compete with other jurisdictions and with the federal government. And so without revealing any of the content in the document that's embargoed until tomorrow, those are among the issues that OLO looks at.
And you mentioned November 17th, a discussion.
We're going to have a thorough briefing on the cost drivers that make government in Montgomery County as expensive as it is. Some of them are within the control of elected officials. Others, like the state mandate to maintain our effort on education and to pay the cost of school pensions, are out of the control of county government.
It's full council committee?
It's a full council discussion. It'll be a robust, useful discussion of the cost of government.
When you talk about, compare to other jurisdictions, again, are you looking at, are we paying more than Fairfax County?
No.
I mean, what specifically did you see? Like, are we 10% over, 20% over?
Right. So the report is embargoed until tomorrow, and I'll be available and delighted to answer questions about the report as soon as we release it, which will be tomorrow morning.
But we know the report's coming. What can you tell us? What can should the public know about this report, and why should they be interested in it?
I think overall we need to ask whether we're spending too much and whether there are changes that elected officials can put in place that would get the best value for the taxpayer's dollar.
Which managers are included in this report?
Let's get into the details of the report when it's released tomorrow morning.
Once it is released, is there any chance that hiring or salaries would change after?
That'll be a conversation that I expect will take place over the next several months. I know that the executive branch doesn't share my concern, and they can speak for themselves. So, I think there will be a lively dialogue on whether we ought to impose from the legislative branch some changes in compensation for the top.
Okay, the discussion you mentioned next week for
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, for the cost drivers. Who's involved in that conversation?
It's being organized by our council administrator, Steve Farber,
Okay,
and he's working with our Office of Legislative Oversight.
okay. Will the school system be involved in that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I know you're not going to divulge much about this report tomorrow, but you did say high-level managers.
That's what it's about.
If you're a county employee, what is if you have a title of manager, that's going to be information we're going to get?
A director or a manager.
sorry, who of the school system is going to be there 2 weeks from now?
Oh, I don't think the school system will be presenting. We're just going to have an analysis of the costs, of which the school system is the most significant. It's more than half of our budget.
Oh, okay.
It'll be Steve Farber who's presenting with help from the Office of Legislative Oversight.
When this discussion first came up in July, Patrick Lacefield got back to us on the executive's view of this and sent, and I'm looking at the email, one interesting thing is how much Montgomery County Council President and County Council member salaries are above state averages.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree that those are salaries that need to be looked at?
I fully anticipate that that conversation will take place. My current salary is $125,000. It's that's 10% above the other council members' salaries. I'll actually take a pay cut when I'm no longer council president. I'm not trying to shrink from a discussion of our salaries, except that our salaries were based on a report of an independent citizen commission. They were benchmarked against comparable jurisdictions in Maryland and throughout the country, just as this OLO report is. Currently, so the current salary for county council members is $113,000. We have department heads who make more than twice that much. Council members routinely put in about 60 hours a week, and we work very, very hard for the money. So I anticipate that council salaries, you know, that Patrick Lacefield would hit us back in that way. I assume he'll do the same thing. It would be useful if you asked what Patrick Lacefield's salary is and how that compares to other public information officers in the region and around the country. And the OLO report will address that.
In terms of any departments, I know that when governments look at cost cutting, sometimes they even look at departments that they no longer need. Are you that deep into this?
Well, we've eliminated a county department this year. That was a pretty substantial move. Now, that was an issue on which the executive and the council were in agreement.
Tomorrow morning, Mr. Berliner is going to be at the corner of Mass Ave and River Road talking about a day of
Thursday,
action.
I thought it was Thursday morning.
Thursday, I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, is it?
No, it is tomorrow. It is
Okay.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning, okay.
And concern about level of traffic
Right.
fatalities
Right.
in the county. Do you have any particular concern as well?
Sure.
Do you see, I mean.
I
like-
congratulate Roger. I think it's a great initiative that he's embarked upon. I think it's something that we should maintain more than a day, but I think it's a very creative approach. I dropped my son off at school at that time in the morning. I don't know if I'll be able to make it over to Bethesda in heavy traffic, but he certainly has my, you know, I'm sending him all the support I can. I don't think I'll be able to participate.
And, this is only tangentially connected, but the couple that was killed from Clarksburg, and they were in Calvert County. They were cycling and they were hit from behind. The allegation is that the driver was driving drunk. A lot of people in the activists in the cycling and pedestrian community say, we continue to treat these as though, oops, that's kind of a bummer. It was an accident. Do you see the need for more tightening up, particularly with drunk driving? I know every year MAD goes to Annapolis asking for the breathalyzer to be made mandatory if I'm nailed for drunk driving. Do you have any
I would
thoughts
favor
on that?
mandatory breathalyzer tests. You know, in general, highway safety is a state issue because we want it to apply statewide, but drunk driving is a crime. It's terrible.
If I could go back to the Economic Development Corporation, what improvements do you hope will develop once you're gone by the?
Well, I want to see a much more aggressive marketing effort on behalf of Montgomery County. I don't think we've done enough to market ourselves. I think we have a great story to tell, but I think we've been, as a county, I think we've paid insufficient attention to the marketing aspect of economic development. And I also think that we need to do a much more sophisticated approach to the global economy. I think we've got tremendous assets here. We have more foreign-born residents than any other county in Maryland, and we were recently rated as among the major cities in Montgomery County were rated as among the very most diverse. So we should be able to tell the story that no matter where your business is based, we can find you highly skilled workers who speak your language. That's a great advantage that makes Montgomery County unusual and in some ways unique. But that means that we've got to do a better job working with the State Department of Commerce on identifying opportunities overseas and finding out how to strengthen those connections between our excellent workforce and the overseas markets.
So how would a privatized corporation help do that better than the way?
Well, the
now?
expectation is that the board, which comes from the business community, has its finger on the pulse of what business needs and what it takes for a business to survive better than government bureaucrats do. And that's why these other jurisdictions have a private corporation doing this work. It's somewhat of an experiment. We haven't done it before, but we all acknowledge that we've got to strengthen our efforts to grow our tax base, and that's ultimately the best answer to providing the services that taxpayers expect. We expect the very best services here, but there's resistance to pay the taxes if we have more taxes coming from more entities, especially commercial entities. That's what we seek. Of course, every other jurisdiction seeks the same thing, but we have unique advantages that we can market here, and I think we need to do a better job of marketing them.
Okay, so what about people already experienced in the business sector would make them more effective since they don't have county or city government experience necessarily?
The assumption is that people who are successful in business themselves understand where the opportunities lie and where we should be focusing our efforts to attract and retain business here in Montgomery County.
Okay.
So we'll be relying upon the expertise and experience of business leaders rather than taking a government-focused approach to economic development.
Could you speak to how well they'll work with each other, given that they're from all different businesses, including community colleges? And
Well, we had a very good discussion last week, and it's just the beginning, but I think Mr. Leggett made good choices, and we look to their leadership and the leadership of the staff that they will hire.
Do you support the radon bill?
We're discussing that. I haven't decided how I'm going to vote on that one. We want Montgomery County to be the healthiest and safest county in America. I'm not a member of the T&E committee, which reported the radon bill favorably. I'm going to be listening to the conversation. I just met with the realtors who are opposing it. They're seeking a delay to try to work out some compromise. I'd be delighted if there's some amicable outcome here, but I'm going to be conferring with my colleagues over the course of the day.
It's election day tomorrow.
Right.
3 cities.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the reminder on that. I encourage residents of those municipalities that have elections to vote. I voted early yesterday in the city of Takoma Park, where I live. They've got very lively elections also in Gaithersburg and Rockville, and I strongly encourage all residents to exercise their civic duty and vote.
Any thoughts on what these municipalities and the county can do to get more people to the polls?
Well, early voting is intended to get more people to the polls. I mean, I've got a very busy day tomorrow, so it was convenient for me to be able to vote on Sunday, which I did. So they're all implementing early voting. I think that's an important way to make voting more convenient. Tuesday, during a working week is not always the most convenient for people. Okay. All right, very good. Always good to see you. I appreciate your participating in this.